Hello friends, this is Carrie and welcome back to I Like Reddit channel. I hope you all are staying safe and healthy. Friends, today we have some stories out of FHOAs and JustNoHOAs with a bonus from r/neighbors from hell. I hope you like the stories that I picked out, and let's begin. Our first story is a cross post from r/entitled people, and it is posted by Chandris. I don't care what you are, you can't park in my spot. I am a paramedic in a place that has some HOAs and apartment complexes. We hate responding to apartment complexes because there's nothing but assigned parking and no fire zones. Basically, if we can't find a space to fit, we have to block the road. My agency also uses first responder vehicles and ambulances. First responders, as implied, usually arrive first, so we do our best to leave room for the ambulance to fit in. We get a call to an apartment complex, and I'm the first responder. As I pull up to the address, by some miracle, there is a spot only 2 apartments away. Great! I can leave the road clear for the ambulance. As soon as I park, out comes a guy screaming that I can't park there. I do the "Are you serious?" look and just say it's a medical emergency. He says he doesn't care and I can't park there. Keep in mind, my vehicle has enough lights to make a Christmas tree jealous. I just grab my stuff and lock the vehicle and keep going. He's screaming that he's going to call the cops. I tell him the cops are on the way. They respond to the medical emergency. The cop gets there while I'm in with the patient and tells him to basically pound sand. The cop enters the apartment and this guy really goes full entitled. He enters the apartment into the room where I'm treating the patient. He starts ranting and raving about how I need to move my vehicle. I look at the cop and say, "Get him out of here." The cop seals his fate. She asks the patient if she wants this person removed from the apartment and did she ever give him her consent. The patient responds, "Get him the hell out of here, he's trespassing." Boom, the all clear. The cop gives him one last chance and tells him to leave or he will be arrested. He doubles down, "I'm on the board and I can go where I please." At this point, backup is called. The ambulance arrives with the police department backup, and they get him out of the apartment so that we can safely move the patient. Not entirely sure what happened next, as I was in the back of the ambulance, but when I got out of there, the officer approached me and said, "Sorry, but we need another bus. We had to tase him." Policy for the police department is if they have to tase someone, they have to be transported to the hospital by ambulance, as the taser spikes have to be surgically removed due to the barbs in them. Wait for the second ambulance and they take him and I go back in service. I found out a few weeks later that he was charged with trespassing, assaulting an officer, resisting arrest, and interfering with government administration, aka interfering with the scene of an emergency. All over a parking space that in all would have been 20 minutes if he hadn't created problems. As I can assume, he only took a plea deal because I was never called to testify. Too long didn't read. Entitled HOA board member goes nuts because an emergency vehicle took his parking space for an emergency, ends up going to the hospital and then to jail. Our next story is posted by Classic Grinder. Blocking the pool because people jump the fence only hurts those who pay for the pool key. Rant. Seriously, this has been happening for years. This lady Judy thinks that she's the judge and jury of the pool. Not only does she lock the pool for days as punishment if someone from the renter's side jumps the fence after hours, but she also sits and watches people of color. She goes so far as to follow them back to their townhouse to make sure they actually have a key and aren't faking. It's very strange that she doesn't watch or follow my white husband, but watches me and our neighbors. This is happening almost weekly, where she puts a padlock on and writes passive-aggressive notes as to why we can't swim in the pool that we pay for. The only people she's punishing are the people who actually pay for the pool keys. She is the HOA vice president and has nothing better to do than to marshal the pool. I called the management company and they were baffled as to why she took this upon herself. They are sending out an email soon with the updated pool hours and rules, but I'm not sure if this will deter Judy. I just really don't understand. Is this normal? It seems over the top to me, but this is our first bought, paid, and have the deed, no mortgage home. We always pay our fees on time. We've lived here for nearly a decade, and I regret voting this witch in. I need some advice about this lady. Besides my note, next to her note, calling the actual HOA company and complaining, because done and done. Edit/update. Sent photos of Judy's little notes to the management company, and they are sending out new pool rules with extended hours. The HOA president is on vacation, but returns next week, so we'll have to wait and see. The pool is open today, and I took several neighbors who didn't pay for keys. We had a great time with no Judy. I talked to some of the teens, 16 and up, who can swim without supervision, that came to the pool and suggested that I record Judy if she follows them, and they can come to my house if they don't feel safe. I will be taking my phone with me to the pool from now on. I didn't before because my house was right next to it. I love all the lock cutting suggestions. And to be clear, I will only be cutting locks in my dreams. I dream of cutting off the lock and throwing it through Judy's window. But I won't be because I'm an adult with responsibilities. Thank you everyone, I appreciate all the comments, suggestions, and laughs. Might do another update when I speak to the HOA president. If you're enjoying the content so far, please put a heart emoji in the comments section down below. Our next story is posted by Sarstrew. HOA changed the front door code to access the building and won't share it with residents. So, my HOA changed the front door code and refused to provide it to any tenants or owners. I'm an owner. Now we all have access to our units through the back door with a key or through the underground garage. This minor inconvenience doesn't really bother me, however. This creates a problem for the postal service and package delivery, as you must provide a door code for entry so that you can access the mailroom inside the lobby. I've witnessed USPS locked out a few times, and luckily I was there to let them in, but I wonder what would happen if no one lets them in. This week I had 2 packages returned because UPS and OnTrack couldn't access the mailroom. The CC&Rs state that all owners have a non-exclusive easement of use and enjoyment in, to, and through the common areas of ingress, egress, and support over and through the common areas. I've requested a new code multiple times, but the HOA is only given me radio silence. Is this issue one I could potentially win? My thoughts are, it's a potentially dangerous situation if you get locked out and there's no other way to access your unit but from inside the building unless you follow someone in or out. Also, who prohibits access to your front door? The conversation with UPS went something like this. UPS, we need your front door code. Me. This might sound crazy, but I'm not allowed to use my front door. Our next story is posted by Little Bit Evil, my HOA Experience. I, 41 male, at the unexperienced age of 25 and a bachelor, I grew tired of living in low-rent apartments surrounded by less than lawful individuals and decided that a mortgage at the time would be only a little bit more per month and it would make a great investment. Oh, to go back in time and give myself a talk, because what I learned was that living in an HOA only makes you a glorified renter. At the end of the day, you own nothing. The condo I purchased was nice. 1,300 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, vaulted ceiling, thick walls. I was pretty impressed with myself. Unfortunately, the HOA was not well managed. The board was nothing more than puppets for a management company who might as well have been landlords. It was a large HOA, 26 buildings with 12 units each. I learned in comparison to my friends, that was a pretty good thing, as it meant that assessment fees were more spread out. When I moved in, I didn't know anything about assessment fees. I was barely educated on HOA fees. One of the selling points was the low HOA fee, only $80 per month. But later I found out the developer, who was still finishing the last of the 4 buildings, supplemented the fee to keep it low so that he could sell more units. I also didn't know that my HOA was a sub-HOA, which meant that it was an HOA inside an HOA. So I had to pay the master HOA $25 per month to do nothing, literally nothing, but the privilege of living in an HOA as part of a collection of other HOAs. The sub-HOA did the internal maintenance, and the city itself took care of the HOA's communal areas like public roads. Meanwhile, the sub-HOA board was full of out-of-state Southern Californians in a heavy snow state. My first year there was budgeted $2,000 for snow removal and $45,000 for beautification, new wood chips, and remodeling the clubhouse. Meanwhile, the snow removal fee came to $35,000. At the HOA meeting to vote on how to pay the $35,000 snow fee, they banned anyone from talking about how they got into this mess, and anyone who did was arrested for disorderly conduct by the police standing by, on request of the management company. Eventually, they voted on the assessment fee, which came to $350 per month, roughly. Later, I learned that the plow company was owned by the management company's owner's relative. The plow guy came out if there was barely visible frost on the ground and charged us $100 per push every time he backed up and drove forward. Eventually, the HOA board was replaced and the management company was replaced with a new company. The new company liked to play with the pool keys and charge you to turn them back on. They always tried to claim that your card was read at the pool during unauthorized times, or that the card that you're using was fake and they didn't issue it. The 2008 recession hit without selling the last of the units. The developer backed out of supplementing the fees, and the fees jumped from $65 and $10 the next year. Probably even higher later, but I moved out. The developer screwed up and didn't have room to give the last building or so their 2 parking spots, one covered. So now the HOA wanted to revoke everyone's second spot. Problem: the second spot was on my mortgage and the bylaws provided for the second spot. The HOA dropped the revoked spot idea, but I do not know how they eventually resolved it. Last, I overpaid my HOA every month for dues, placing myself several hundred over in insurance against the new assessment fee. So I paid a little amount for the HOA to install a screen on my dryer vent to keep the birds out against my credit. So I paid for several upgrades inside to sell the place. Unfortunately, when I tried to sell, the recession was at its worst, and I sold at a loss to get out of there and buy a house. The last insult of the HOA was to claim that I never paid for the screen on my dryer vent, that I owed a few hundred back to the HOA. If I didn't pay, they'd place a lien on me, which would mess up the condo I sold and the house that I was buying. So I paid the ransom and walked away from that dumpster fire. Good news is that the house that I bought is not an HOA and has tripled in value. I do know the master HOA eventually was sued by all of the sub HOAs and dissolved because they did nothing but rent the office down the street. I've also ran into people who still own in my old sub HOA. Yes, the fees are much higher now. Our final story is posted by My Yucca is Dead. Neighbors from hell are finally gone. My neighbors have gone and not before time. 8 months ago, a family of 6 moves in next door. Mom, dad, and 4 kids. I've known the dad for years, and the mom is a relative of a friend. I've had my reservations, but I was polite anyway. The trouble started fairly quickly. The mom and dad have a volatile relationship. The mom drinks heavily every weekend and staggers home at midnight only to have a screaming match with the dad. The kids are screamed at or constantly being ignored. They're unwashed, fed whenever they can find, which is not much, as drinks come before food shopping. The kids are expected to get themselves ready for school and nursery. The eldest, 7, is responsible for making sure the rest are ready to leave when mom gets up. Reported to social services, the school, and the nursery. Social services is already involved. Nothing's changed. The school knows, and they're supporting the children. In April, the weather turned nice. Neighbors opened the doors to let the kids out into the garden, and the smell made me close the doors and windows. I spoke to the landlord on multiple occasions, and her hands were tied due to the tight tenant laws here. They are paying rent sporadically, so there's not much the landlord can do. Then, 2 weeks ago, I woke up with an envelope behind my door, holding the keys, and a note asking me to pass it on to the landlord as they've moved. Called the landlord, who came around, and the landlord and I went and checked if they'd left. I've never seen a house look so bad. Dirty diapers everywhere, in the kitchen cupboards, piled up in the corners of the living room, feces wiped on the walls, empty food tins all over the house, writing on the walls, broken bottles everywhere. The house was rented, partially furnished, and all the furniture was broken and stained. The washing machine had a load of wet, moldy clothes inside. Letters from debt collectors are piled up on the side, and there's no electricity. Holes in the internal doors, 2 of the doors are missing. The floor around the toilet is so saturated with urine it's sagging. The landlord had spent the last fortnight documenting this this mess, which has been sent to social services in the school. She basically had to rip back to the brick and had to empty the house of everything. She basically had to rip it back to the brick in most of the rooms. Floorboards will need to be replaced, and as far as I can tell, village gossip, etc., the mother and dad have split again, and the mom has disappeared with the kids, probably trying to avoid social services and the debt collectors. She'll turn up because she's not clever enough to manage hiding for long, but the landlord is out tens of thousands of pounds, and she has no chance of getting anything back. I'm just glad they're gone and I don't have to live next door to them anymore. That's all the stories I have for today. Links to the original Reddit post will be in the description box below. Please stop on by Reddit to show the OP some love and an upvote. If you enjoy my videos, please comment, like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell notification to let you know when I upload new videos. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.